It was in 1999, after 17 years of monogamy, that ex-Rabbi Philip left his first wife and then received revelations from God, demanding he get married again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again.
Judith was part of God's plan for me. She was my first wife. My second wife was Tracy. Then came Hannah, who was part of my congregation in Austria. Then there was Franny. Then Margot, who struggled a lot. And then Chava. And then Karen, she became a wife. I do have a different wife for a different day. Not that I think about it that way, but that is an advantage. Yeah, that's an advantage. That if I'm fed up with one wife, I can spend time with another. But it wasn't my idea.
Faith has played a pivotal role in racehorse trainer Philip's life.
In 1979, I had a very profound revelation of God. I came to believe very strongly that Yeshua, Jesus, is the Jewish Messiah. Couldn't understand why the rabbis hadn't realized that themselves. And although I came from a pretty secular Jewish background, I'd always believed in God very strongly. I always prayed. I didn't pray according to the Jewish prayer books. I just always prayed from my heart and my mind and talked to God regularly. And something profoundly spiritual was going on in my life then. I mean, it was just, there were too many things that you couldn't put down to coincidence. And then something came to me, and I knew that something was going to happen to me that was going to change my life forever. And it was like quite spooky, because I knew it was going to happen, but I didn't know what it was.
30 years ago, God instructed Philip to travel to America to train as a rabbi in the Jews for Jesus movement. And in the late 90s, the revelations returned as the Almighty upped the stakes further, commanding his servant become polygamous.
I had a whole month of visitation of God. I would go to bed and wake up 2 hours later, spark awake, and then God would just begin to speak to me. When it starts to happen, you think you're either going absolutely insane or you found something that is awesome. I lay down on the couch in the lounge and I fell asleep on that couch. And I had this incredible dream. And the dream was that the hosts of heaven, the armies of heaven, were above me, waiting for me to command them. And it's not that I think that I'm this great man that's arrived on earth to do these great things. You know, if you, for example, choose Joan of Arc as an example, you know, she didn't think she was anything great. She didn't even know she was Joan of Arc. She was just an ordinary little girl, and then all of a sudden, you know, she was saying, well, maybe I'm the maid that's been prophesied, you know, and that's how I feel.
Philip was to start a new polygamous family based on ancient Jewish ways. Like a biblical king, Philip took 7 wives, but he's no bigamist. All the marriages are consensual rather than legal unions.
It was like, whoa, and it was freaking me out. And after a month, I actually asked God, I said, God, I can't take anymore. I can't take anymore. I can't do this. I need to sober up.
Six of Philip's new wives were not born Jewish, but some did receive revelations of his messianic mission.
I started to get revelation that Philip would have other wives, and I had a vision of dancing around Philip 7 times And then I found out that's what happens in a Jewish wedding. I didn't know. And I was like, right, okay. But I knew as soon as that I was to be a wife, I knew there would be others.
Philip married Judith in 1999 and Karen in 2003.
It was really hard. It was really hard. Because on the one hand, I did know it was right. But on the other hand, everything inside me was screaming, how am I going to handle this?
The hardest year for Judith was 2001, when her husband was a rabbi, scouring his congregations and collecting 5 wives in just 12 months.
You have your rose-tinted glasses, plans and ideas and dreams of what's going to happen and how things are going to be. But any woman watching this will think, how can you possibly do that?
For the Shabbat meal. Put in the top.
Top?
Yeah.
This one?
No, in the top of the freezer one.
In Sussex, keeping 7 wives, a husband and 9 children fed and watered is a task of biblical proportions. After God told him to become polygamous, racehorse trainer and ex-rabbi Philip Sharp married wife number 2, Tracy, in 2001. She can bear witness to how well the family is maturing.
In the beginning, well, I think we were all very, very competitive with each other, and we were all very manipulative as well. You got to make a cup of tea, come back, someone's jumped in your place. It was really quite bizarre a lot of the time. Everything like that seems to be really coming to an end now, and there seems to be some real genuine unity beginning to happen. Go on. We're all becoming sort of friends now, rather than hating each other. We don't like the situation.
We're together, this is a family, we have to help each other. We're all connected together, if you see what I mean. So it's not just like a mushy love or anything like that, it's a very kind of a godly love.
Sometimes life can be a psalm or two short of divine vision. Space in the house is at a premium, and cleansing the body as well as the soul can be something of a challenge.
This is the only bathroom in the house, and there's no lock on the door, which I was horrified about, so I have to drag the toiletries and barricade myself in. I don't think anybody else does that.
So many people living in such close quarters can occasionally create an atmosphere.
Yes, there are times still when things obviously get pressurised. 9 children and so many adults, and from different, you know, Sarah being Swiss, her room's very tidy, Hannah's very tidy. This is Hannah and Maureen's room. This is Hannah's bed. Hannah's a very naturally orderly person. She's from Austria, and I think that perhaps is a trait, I don't know, but she's certainly a very orderly person. Maureen, it's much harder for her to keep things tidy.
With 7 wives to choose from, what goes on in Philip's bedroom is also a bone of contention.
When it comes to spending a night with Philip, he usually says, would you like to stay with me? But sometimes a wife might say, please can I, if they feel it's right. It's not something we negotiate, we don't have a rota. And again, it's something that has just worked itself out.
Good morning.
Oh, did you watch that programme last night? The, what do you call it? The look-alike jobs, the look-alikes.
Yeah.
Some of them are really good. I thought Lionel Richie was good. And Diana Ross was good.
The wives don't sit down and talk about, you know, oh, I had a good shag last night or whatever. I mean, it's just not discussed.
It helps to have faith if you're left out of Philip's nightly schedule.
It hits on the button of rejection, second-class citizen, I'm the eldest, I'm the ugliest, I'm the whatever. But, you know, more and more I can just relax into that God is love. He didn't do this to hurt me. He didn't do it to wound me. And Philip's not doing it to wound me.
As a racehorse trainer, Philip Sharp has an uncanny knack for breaking in wild horses.
Animals are much more honest, generally, than people. They warn you with their body language if they're not happy or if they're insecure. And of course, all of those things are paralleled with people, except that people often have more hardness of heart, they have more pride, more suspicion, distrust. With a wife, the same thing applies. But instead of the understanding of the body language, which is what the horse understands, a human being is much more complex. The way that I would train a wife, seriously, the way I would train a wife is by discerning the motive of her heart in the way she's trying to have fellowship with me. Good morning, everyone.
At dawn every day, the Sharp family gathers together. It's the time that Philip uses to tell his many wives just what he expects of them.
The scriptures clearly promise that God would do away with all falsehood. And you need the magnifying glass of truth over your falsehood. Yeah, you're going to be miserable for quite some time. But the goal of that misery is joy. And this is one of the reasons why things have to get very hard and very difficult. But unless you, as a woman, become accountable to whom you should be accountable to, responsible to whom you should be responsible to, unless you do that, then you are a rebel. You're not going to receive from me what you would like from me until you get rid of all falsehood. I cannot be nice all the time. I don't even want to be nice all the time. If people don't like me for being true, honest and upright, well, they can piss off, because I'm not interested. I get dictatorial, if you like, about the issues where people don't love themselves. I don't get dictatorial to make them not love themselves. That would be crushing and manipulating.
We all tend to kind of beat ourselves up a bit, and you're terrible and you're this. And I think that creates an incredible tension. So people become, it's like if you're rebuked or something, or something in you is exposed, rather than saying, right, okay, I am like that, Lord, help me to change, it becomes, oh, I'm really awful. And that, I think, creates a lot of the tension, which makes Philip seem like he's being very hard, when actually it's not. A lot of the time, it's just us being very hard on ourselves.
Being one of Philip's wives is not for the faint-hearted. Living with tough love can get too much. Margot married Philip in 2001, but recently had a crisis of faith in their polygamous relationship.
I was just on the verge of actually going, saying, okay, I'll go. And then I just thought about it. And I think that if you want something from God, you have to give something from yourself. And that's what I could see for me, that I need to give something from myself to have something from God, to actually follow him and follow calling that is on Phil's life, and that I believe God's put on everyone individually as a, you know, everybody has a purpose in life, but if you find God, then you can do that with God, and He can show you what your purpose is. So I'm still here, and I'm hoping that I'll still be here.
The scriptures depict marriage as you don't belong to yourself, you belong to your wife, and your wife belongs to you. Now, I don't have a problem if a wife has got a particular gifting of leadership or some form of creativity. Then I would strongly support, encourage, and be there. But when it's done out of a hostile independence, then it's not being done in what I call a marriage.
What you don't see is, stop it, is the weeks and weeks of prayer meetings where he's speaking about stuff and we don't take any notice because we are very complacent. Unless you really, really want to sort of face something head on, it's very easy to listen to a prayer meeting and go, yeah, thank you very much, and go on with your day. And I know for me sometimes, until things get very strong and I'm backed into a corner, I won't deal with it. So I can understand his frustration sometimes. But that comes from having a desire, because he can see where we're supposed to be going and what we're supposed to be like. And I think for someone who can see what the outcome is and then to look at the mess that there is, it must be quite frustrating sometimes as well.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom.
It's not dominance, it is love. It is really, really love. Yes, it can be tough, you know, he has to be tough because I'm a tough cookie. You know, when I'm soft, he's actually, Philip is a very soft man. It's our fault that he has to be tough, you know. It breaks his heart. It breaks his heart like it breaks my heart having to dish out the discipline to a child. It hurts me, you know, I would rather just enjoy it.
You speak to my wives and there's no ball and chain around their ankles, there's no manipulation there. They know they're free to go at any time. Shabbat, 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 Shalom.
We give him a hard time. We give him a really hard time, and he has laid down his life for us in a way that I just can't imagine any other man would do or could do.
I mean, there'll be a million judges out there with their opinions. And I could be judged as some dictatorial, hard taskmaster. I could be judged that way.
I wouldn't want any other life. I couldn't imagine any other life. I couldn't imagine being anywhere else, doing anything else. The thought of going back to the life I had before, the work, the meaningless work I did before, I just couldn't imagine. There isn't any other option. And we've all chosen that.
What are my motives? Is it to dominate and have all these people be my skivvies? Is that the reason? Or actually is love the reason?